And all the people broke off the rings of gold in their ears, and they brought it to Aaron, and he took them from their hand and formed it with an engraving tool, and he made it a casted calf. Hello and welcome to Applicata Biblia. My name is Mark. Thank you so much for stopping by as we get into a little bit into God's Word. We are continuing in the series, Characters of the Bible, or A Walk Through the Bible, either title. There's probably another title floating around out there as well, but those two titles are what we're going with. And we are in Lesson 18. Now, Lesson 18 we'll be devoting to Aaron, as you probably could tell from that reading that I put in the front of this before the introduction. And just by way of reminder, Moses has come on the scene. We talked briefly about Moses in the last lesson and the implications of who he is, how important of a character he is, and why Israel's future is dependent not on him, but all the things that God does through him, and the very special relationship that God has with Moses. One of the things we see is that the law comes through Moses. It's important to see this. And moving forward, Israel is now a nation, and they are a nation, and they are supposed to be representing God. Now, in this story, in Exodus, they are still freshly out of Egypt, and for a lot of different reasons, they are not really understanding their position with God, nor are they truly understanding what faith really means. It's not just about God just doing things for you. That God expects us to have a great belief in him, and not just say we believe, but actually show it by our actions. So today we're going to get into the story of Aaron. Now, Aaron is the high priest, right? He is the high priest, and this is the new order, and I'm going to put up a little graphic that kind of shows, what happened before the law comes. You have the patriarch area, and then their era. Then you have God dispensing a law, telling his people exactly what he expects from them for a lot of different reasons. Now we're going to spend the next 3 lessons, we might combine 2 of them, talking about this structure, about the Levites and their position within this nation, mostly because, let's face it, like all the other nations, Israel is a theocracy, and it's run by its God. Now, unlike the other gods, Jehovah God isn't something that somebody made up. This God actually speaks to people. He tells them what they need to do. And unlike the other gods, they're just basically made up in somebody's mind. And, usually those gods are given very humanistic type personalities. So I'm going to read a little bit, and this is Lesson 18. We're going to read from Exodus chapter 30. This is well into Exodus. Exodus is about 50 chapters long, and we're well into the book. By this point, Israel has already been freed from Egypt, and they're kind of finding their way, and Moses has gone up to get the laws from God, and he's gone a very long time. And we're going to just read from verse 1 of chapter 18. We're only going to read a few verses and answer some basic questions, mostly to see that, first and foremost, in my mind, when I read it, I see that Israel has real issues understanding what God expects of them. Now, I don't blame them, okay? And this is something that I say a lot. These things aren't put here so we can blame people or point a finger at them or condemn them or anything like that. It's so that we can see who we are, because we are very much like Israel. We forget, we go against what God wants us to do all the time. We're not any better. So that's why this is here, and we'll get into that here. So let's just start at verse 1. The people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, and the people gathered to Aaron, and they said to him, "Rise up, make for us gods, who may go before our face. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And Aaron said to them, "Break off the rings of gold which are in the ears of your wives and your sons and daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people broke off the rings of gold in their ears, and they brought it to Aaron, and he took them from their hand and formed it with an engraving tool, and he made it a casted calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who made you go up from the land of Egypt." So I'm just going to stop it right there. So basically we see that the people get impatient, and they say, hey, they go to Aaron. At least they go to Aaron. They know that he's the brother of the guy who's brought them out of Egypt. And they say, where is this guy? Where he's been gone a long time. And so Aaron makes these idols. And it's like, if you know God and you know his expectations, you know how much he abhors idolatry. We see, we think right away, Aaron, what happened here? That's our first thought. And of course, again, we have to understand this is a nation who has come out of many, many years of oppression and idolatry. There was a lot of idolatry in Egypt. And this is something that we don't really cover in this class, but it's important to see. There's so much idolatry. When God delivers the Israelites, he sends 10 plagues down to convince Pharaoh that he needs to let those people go. And every one of those plagues addresses one of the panoply of idols that the Egyptians are worshiping. And I think we may have a link to, I know there's a guy who did a series on that, and I'll try and remember it, and I'll try to put that link in there. So it's important to see here that these people, they don't really have a good understanding about God. And this is just Aaron messing up. And of course, as you read through the story, you find out that God is really, and I brought this up in the last lesson, God is very unhappy about this. And he wants to destroy Egypt, but Moses talks him out of it. Now, we talked a little bit about that. And Moses goes back. He's got these stone tablets that God wrote the law on. He throws them down on the ground. He's so angry. And he says, "Who's for God?" And a bunch of the Levites come over to where he is. And he says, "We need to clean up this mess and the people who are involved." And Aaron is spared, but I think there's like 3,000 people, I think that's what it is, that fall that day because of this sin. And so it's really important to see how easy and how quickly we as human beings can forget who we are and who we belong to. Okay, so I just very briefly covered this very quickly. So I suggest, again, you read through just read through the book of Exodus. And this chapter 32 is highlighted. So my questions to the class are these. Does Aaron seem to resist the people? No, we don't hear him resisting anybody. It doesn't seem to bother him just to make these, this idol or idols, and let the people say, this is the God. Here's the God that got you, that took care of you, which is an insult to Jehovah God. Now, it's good to note that Aaron actually called on a feast day for Jehovah God. So he's obviously not making an idol of a weird God. He just thinks, I'm going to make an idol to represent Jehovah God, I guess is what he thinks he's doing. And no, you don't do that, Aaron. Don't do that. Does he seem agreeable? Well, yeah, he does. They ask and he does it. We don't see him pushing back. So what does that tell us? Does that tell us he had no faith? Well, he obviously had some faith, but he didn't understand, and because he didn't understand completely what God expected of him, we don't see him taking care of it. Now, I'm giving him a little lateral movement here. I think he should have known better, but he saw the people and he probably became frightened and just went ahead and did what they asked. Not a good look. So yeah, who does Aaron want to honor? He wants to honor Jehovah, but this isn't the way to do it. And then I asked Rate Aaron's excuse for helping with the sin. And basically he just says, well, the people gave me this gold and out popped this idol. And it's just weak. It reminds me of Adam. Yeah, she made me do it, Lord. It's just weak. It's really, really weak. I said it's dumb. It's good, believable, or dumb. It's not good. It's almost unbelievable, and it seems very dumb. But again, there are extenuating circumstances. For me, it's like, Aaron, here's your opportunity to be a leader. We see later that Aaron starts to grumble about not having as much power as Moses. It's like, here's your chance, take it. But he doesn't. Instead, he messes it all up. So list the consequences of this sin. Well, we see God's anger, and then we see Moses' anger and disappointment in both of these, in God and in Moses, both of these people. They're both very angry. They're both very disappointed in the people. And then we see, people are actually killed because of it. That's the judgment upon Israel at this time. We see God taking this new nation, and this is something that we see now. God's taking this new nation, and he's exacting all of these quick judgments. And it's not unlike what we see. There's one guy who picks up sticks on the Sabbath and he's killed. And we have to remember that these souls belong to God. All right? All of our souls belong to God, and he will deal with us depending on our faith when we're done on this earth. And so if God takes a soul, that's up to him. I say we, I mean, people at large want to judge God for taking souls, and it's like, yeah, you don't get to do that. Paul talks about that. He addresses that. The pot doesn't criticize the potter, right? So I just like to get that across to people who don't understand exactly what's going on here. So list the consequences of sin, and this is something, there are consequences to sin. That's just the way it is. And of course, it's those people that are dying. And it really, what it does, again, is it reveals their lack of faith and their lack of understanding of Jehovah God and his expectations of them. And then I ask the question, some sins do not tempt us until someone else encourages us to do that. Why is that? And this is something that, a lot of times in class, people won't talk about it because they're afraid of, thinking that, I might reveal a sin that I have problems with. Well, we all, and here's the funny thing about that is we all do. John's pretty clear about that. We all have issues with sin. And, just sometimes, You might be 99.9% on a specific sin and it doesn't ever affect you. But all of a sudden, you get the wrong influence on your life, and maybe you're going to do it. And that's what I try to get across to young people. There's an old partial verse, about bad companions corrupt good morals, that sort of thing. And we just know that kind of thing can happen anytime and for any one of our weaknesses. And this is something I try to get across to people who are learning to embolden their Christian walk, that Satan knows what your and my weaknesses are, and that's where he tries to be like the dripping water thing. Okay, so I know that there's so much more in here about this, and in the next one, we're going to cover Nadab and Abihu, and I think we're going to incorporate the Levitical priesthood lesson into that one as well. And I'm going to go ahead and put up the graphic that shows basically, because this is a theocracy, where the Levites are, where they stand in that, and then we'll explain a little bit more about that in the next one. See you later.